Hi, everybody. Welcome to this ideally would have been the first episode of Let's Talk About Music. I'm here with two of my childhood friends, Jim Gamble and David Adams. And the whole purpose of this show came from the idea of, as kids, we'd sit around in our basements and listen to records and talk about music with our friends. These are the friends that I did that with. So
For
welcome.
better or for worse.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here, man. You guys are two of my oldest friends. We have known each other since we were in grade school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Columbia grade school.
So many stories, and I'm going to count on you guys not to release any blackmail material on me because I know I was a shithead growing up. I know we have a lot of stories between
Listen,
us.
I think we all know enough about each other that it's going to equalize. So
okay, yeah. Okay, we'll keep that.
What comes around goes around.
Exactly.
I hope it doesn't come around too far. Thank you guys for being here. I'm thrilled to have you.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So as we were listening to music, thinking about like what music was playing on the family stereo that has made it into your record collection now, because I think about my mom. She listened to not only those crappy K-Tel 8-tracks, but she had like Harold King Tapestry and Jim Croce and Gordon Lightfoot. And some of those are in my record collection now, and I love them. They still come out every once in a while on road trips, especially.
Well, you were fortunate then, Carl, because my parents were a little bit older than I think parents of kids our age. And it was mainly Lawrence Welk and that sort of music, and Patsy Cline.
Yeah.
Boy, I can't. It was country. Country was the main sound in our house for sure.
Yeah. Well, for us, so I always feel like we were a bit of a unicorn or ugly duckling. I don't know. Like we were odd. Mom was a musician, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot of classical music, a ton of classical music. And so I remember at one point, like I was kind of naive to music when I was really young. We didn't hear a lot of the popular music until I got a little bit older. And then once I started hearing it, I'm like, holy cow, where's this been all my life? Right. And I remember John Denver. Dad was really into John Denver. He was into Linda Ronstadt.
Mm-hmm.
So those are a couple of artists that I immediately think of my dad when I hear those. But classical, I think of my mother, of course.
Your mom's awesome.
I do remember, going to David's house. You obviously heard a lot of piano music, right? Mm-hmm. Both live and I think playing, but it was certainly a lot lower key music style there.
For sure. Lawrence Welk too, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
we did that every Sunday night or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah, Lawrence Welk every Sunday night.
Yeah,
I remember that. My grandfather was a huge Lawrence Welk fan, and sometimes Hee Haw too.
Oh yeah,
yes.
That was a little too racy for my house, apparently.
Okay.
I think I tried to watch it a couple times, and I think the Hee Haw Honeys kind of wigged out my mom or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay. But it was it's like the musicianship. I was never a country guy. I never really dug the country music.
Yeah.
But as I started playing music more, I definitely had an appreciation for the talent that was involved there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Roy Clark is a monster guitar player. Buck Owens, fantastic. The musicianship that they had was for a campy kind of corny show.
Yeah. They
were amazing musicians.
I totally agree with you.
Picking and grinning. Right?
Yeah. They had fun, just like the twinkle in their eye. And the older I got, so funny side note story about that. So when I left our hometown of Wenatchee, and I went to LA, which is to go to Malibu, of course, which was like maybe the craziest, but also the best thing I've ever done. I mean, talk about a culture shock. And did college and all that kind of stuff. And then I started working in that market. And this is a hee haw story. So I ended up moving into an apartment in like Studio City, Van Nuys area. And my neighbor, we sort of started dating. And I was like, well, what do you do? And she goes, I'm a hee haw honey. I'm like, shut up.
Really?
Like, I didn't know this, but they brought the show back later.
Okay.
Right. And so there was another push of that show. Anyway, she and I, we were we didn't go anywhere, but it was just funny. I'm like, hey Mom, remember that show? I'm dating a hee haw honey. My mom's like, oh yeah. So little side note about hee haw.
That's awesome.
Hey Carl, I got a question for you.
Sure.
What was your first album that you bought?
There you go.
The first album that I bought with my own money was The Best of Donny Osmond on 8-track. And I was 4. The next album I got after playing that and realizing that it kind of sucked was Kiss Love Gun. And then after that I was totally hooked on Kiss and the band Styx, which neither one holds up as well as they did. I'm not as into them as I was when I was 8.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they're still in my record collection somewhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, nice.
And then after Kiss, it was directly into Van Halen and Aerosmith. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Jim, do you remember yours?
Yeah, of course. It was Supertramp, Breakfast in America.
Oh, I still love that album.
It's still that one holds up.
Yeah. That is a fantastic album.
Yeah.
And then like that album had it had like what, 7 hits on it?
Yeah.
It had The Logical Song, which I thought that was amazing. Crime of the Century was a different album. Breakfast in America, Take the Long Way Home.
God, it's a good song.
That was one of those albums that it could have been a greatest hits album. It was like so many great songs.
So my brother, who's my closest brother to me, who's 12 years older than I, he lived upstairs when I was a kid, so he was still at home, and he had a record collection that was a fairly good size at the time. I don't know, it must have been 100 records there. And I'd sneak up when he was gone, and that's how I kind of got my first taste of different types of music. And he was, he obviously was in the 70s, so he was listening to 70s rock, I guess you'd say. Peter Frampton. Peter Frampton was a big one for him.
Yeah.
Was he the UFO? Because I remember hearing UFO from my cousin next door, and I'm like, that stuff's amazing. You know?
He was, I think, the one that we listened to. A friend of mine, we sneak up there and listen to Jesus Christ Superstar. Like,
oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And that was strange to us, like, wow, this is kind of cool. Different.
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Soundtracks were huge in the 70s.
Sure.
The Saturday night, I remember the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was like immense. And then Grease right after that.
Right.
Like, not too long after that. And everybody had those.
Yep.
You know?
Of course.
So you asked that question. I think ours was the Jackson 5.
Yeah.
That was your first album?
I think so. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's the one I remember just wearing out.
Yeah.
When I was really young.
I Want You Back is like one of the coolest songs ever. The rhythm on that is amazing, and they were all great players too.
Right.
That's amazing.
Right.
So how much of your current listening is newer bands, or is it still kind of, it's comfortable to kind of stick with the bands that you grew up with, and as we get older, it takes more effort to find new music that you like. It's just as easy to buy the new Foo Fighters or Tom Petty album because you know what to expect, versus going out and finding a band like the Struts or some of the newer stuff that's out there. So like,
I'll answer. I have there's 2 bands that I've recently come across that are newer, and I like them for totally different reasons. So one is called Lake Street Dive, and they're very vocal oriented, but old string bass, a little bit of pop and jazz, and in my house at one point Manhattan Transfer was playing, right?
Yeah.
And they're kind of a newer version of that Manhattan Transfer, very funky, really good vocals. The singer's amazing.
Okay.
There's a couple of really good songs that are mainstream. They're not too jazzy.
Okay.
And then the other one, but to your point, Carl, it's like, do I like them because it reminds me of Led Zeppelin? Is Greta Van Fleet.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's I've tried to give them an honest listen, and it took a little while for me to get it. The Struts kind of have a Queen vibe to them, and I really dig them.
I'll have to check them out. I don't know them.
Yeah, they're and then there's another band, and they're a southern band. They are kind of a combination of, if I had to categorize them, a combination of the Black Crowes and AC/DC.
That's a good combo.
Yeah, and it's called the Glorious Sons.
Okay.
And they're fantastic. They've got this southern vibe. They're just a really kind of funky, soulful band. There's another band, and if I couldn't categorize them other than to say, put James Brown in Prince's band. And it's a band called Vintage Trouble.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like amazing.
I need to get a bigger notepad for all this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll put links in the comment section once it goes posted.
I'm proud of you guys. I really am, because you know what? I still listen to the same music I listened to.
So do I, though.
Yeah. And the thing is, Chris really turned me on to country. I listen to a lot of country now, which I never would have 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Only time I ever listen to something new is if someone at work says, "Hey, you should check this out." I think the last time I did that, and they're probably not even new, it was Adelita's Way. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I've never heard of them.
More of the rock, kind of a heavier rock type group. But I'm impressed with you guys, because I know that you guys do that. You actually try to step out and listen to something a little bit different, which is pretty impressive.
A little bit, but there is something like, whatever the radio station, there's a couple that, it just takes you back. It's like an old pair of jeans. It's, when I hear Van Halen or Foreigner or Styx, I'm like, I am young again,
Oh, for sure.
I the technical director at work, we have these throughout the office, in all the conference rooms, we have these Sonos Bluetooth speakers. And he comes in, and he knows, like, I'm the rock guy. So he came over and he actually took one out of the conference rooms, and he put it on my desk, and he's like, "This is yours." And he changed the Bluetooth name of it to Carl's Cafe.
There you go.
So nice. I'm usually the first one there in the morning. So first thing I do is crank up, and it's got like a 80s playlist and whatever. It's got, everything from AC/DC and Joan Jett and Foreigner. And, every once in a while it'll kick into like U2 or something. And I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. We'll let it slide.
So it's the Sonos Move unit, right?
Yeah.
So Sonos should be paying us for this.
I would think so. I think I should get a free subscription and add. And now I've got it joined to my Amazon Prime music library.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like playing stuff through that from my library.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
Oh, me too.
Well, awesome. So to this, and I think every decade, I bet anybody who grew up in the 60s will say that's the best era. Anybody who grew up in the 70s will say that. But I think the 80s is so amazing. And even my kids, they know our songs from that era. They know the words, they sing them, and a couple of them have said, "Dad, I think the 80s music just stands like it's different." I don't know.
I think I agree with you, just because I'm an 80s kid, right? But I think the 70s are pretty cool.
They're pretty cool.
The early 90s, I love grunge, right?
What I'll say about what I think part of what makes the 80s is MTV.
Sure.
The music videos where, in the 70s, you'd hear the music on the radio, and that was really the only way to hear it.
Right.
And you could see the album covers, and if you were lucky, it had a gatefold or liner notes that had pictures of the band playing. But you didn't really get a sense of their personality.
Mm-hmm.
And then MTV came out, and, you've got live videos, but you also have like these produced mini movies where they're acting, and it's, ridiculous with the hair and the, watching them today. Watch a Dokken video or a Poison video, and it's ridiculous.
Dude, I watched the video to Separate Ways.
Oh, right.
Not that long ago, which is a great song.
It's a great song and a terrible video.
But have you seen that video?
Yeah.
It's laughable.
Where they're standing on the pier outside the warehouse.
The air piano.
The air piano, yeah.
I mean, it's laughable bad.
It is so bad.
Yeah, I don't know. They must have spent $100 on that video or something. But
But
at the time, we thought it was great.
We were lucky. We were really lucky back then because that was kind of cool TV at the time, right? And the combination, it was new. And then it, obviously MTV morphed into something way different than what it's out as. But I still remember Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers video.
The one with the futuristic.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The futuristic one where he finds the what was it, like a pinball machine?
I got you. But the organ part or the piano part.
Yeah.
I can hear it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what was the name of that song? That's a group, to your earlier question. I don't want to get you off track, but that's a group that I didn't get until later.
Okay.
When I listen to Tom Petty now, I'm like, man, their stuff's, it's not sophisticated, right? It's pretty simple stuff. It's 3 chords or 4 chords, but it's just catchy as heck. And I've just respect it more as I get older.
It's like I didn't really appreciate Springsteen, and then I kind of went into a Springsteen phase where it's like I stayed away from Born in the USA because they just overplayed it way too much. But Born to Run and Nebraska, and The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle was a great record.
Yeah.
And just like appreciating his songcraft, because he wasn't a great singer. He still isn't, but he had really memorable songs. His songs, like if you just kind of, the same with Elvis Costello. I love Elvis Costello. He's got this kind of punk element to him, but he paints a great picture with his songs. And then
married to Diana Krall, who I also
who was married to, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and she's amazing. Yeah. People like Elton John and like the singer-songwriter that had like I wonder how many of those type of artists that we've missed out on because the way the record company operates now.
Right.
Like Springsteen's first 3 albums didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then Born to Run was like his 4th or 5th album.
Yeah.
And it did reasonably well. And then Born in the USA blew the gates off it.
Yeah.
But record companies now wouldn't give somebody a 5-album deal to hope that they develop into that final product. If you don't sell 1 million in your first record, you get dropped.
Yeah.
And then you fade away and you're flipping burgers or you're doing something else. And
do they make albums anymore, or is it all singles?
They do. They actually do make albums. And you want to know the funny thing? The band Cheap Trick, whenever they release a new album, they also release it on 8-track.
No kidding.
So that they can say, we have the #1 8-track in the country.
That's smart. That's good marketing.
And they only, they have like, I think they only have like 100 of them pressed.
Yeah.
But that's all it takes.
That's pretty cool. Well, so back to your point, I think, MTV and Jim, that created something deep in our psyche that maybe other decades didn't experience the way we experienced it. I mean, each decade's going to have their own thing, of course. But and I think I just read, think of even the names, Marsha Quinn and, Kurt Loder, MTV News.
Right.
I think I just read in the last 2 days that MTV News is disappearing.
Yes.
After all these years.
After all these, I didn't even know MTV News was still on the air.
I didn't either.
We knew all those people. We knew Downtown Julie Brown. We knew
exactly.
And they were as popular as a Walter Cronkite or
to us. They were the TV stars of our generation.
Yeah,
for sure. And you know their names. And I bet you that if you asked any kid nowadays, they'd say who.
Right.
Right.
Well, even just explaining to them that MTV used to only play videos 24 hours a day, and that's all they had.
There's one of them that still does radio, and when I hear her voice, it just takes me back. I can't remember which one it is, the brunette, but
Martha Quinn.
Martha Quinn. I think it's Martha Quinn. And so it's I don't know, it's just cool. It's very nostalgic.
Yeah. It's and seeing the videos too, that like I remember the first guitar I got was a piece of crap, but seeing, a Van Halen video with, he's got the striped guitar, and I was just like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. And, Mike Anthony's Jack Daniels bass. I'm like, that's cool. I want one of those. And, you see other bands, and they've got like 50 guitars, like every scene has a different guitar in it. And I'm like, I want that. And, of course, that's kind of the impetus for this. But, and it's kind of,
I didn't, to think of, your comment, Jim, about you liked the grunge.
Yeah.
To be totally honest, like I did not go easy into grunge. And it was because I loved vocal music and, being a choir kid and all that.
Yeah.
Pianist. But I loved, as I loved heavy riffs and hair bands. And, I think at Def Leppard, Pyromania, when that came out, it was like, it blew my mind, But then when the grunge thing started happening, I was like, I just was like, everybody's loving this, but I'm not loving it. Now, when I listen to Pearl Jam or Nirvana, like I get it, but I didn't get it then.
It seemed like a very easy transition from that 80s hard rock, if that's what you're into, which I was. It was a pretty easy transition. I mean, Alice in Chains is one of my favorite bands.
Phenomenal.
I'll give you one of my funny Alice in Chains stories. So right after I moved over here, and I think I moved in 87. Right after I moved over here, my stepbrother was working at American Music, and he calls me up, and I hadn't even unpacked yet. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, unpacking. He's like, "No, we're going out." I'm like, "Okay, where are we going?" He's like, "It's metal night at Kent Roller Rink."
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, "Okay,
rink.
What's metal night at Kent Roller Rink?" And he's like, "It's a roller skating rink where they throw a concert." I'm like, "Okay." And in the oval, instead of having the band at one end, the stage was set up in the middle. So it was like really narrow and really wide. And the first band that got up, they were terrible. There was two guitar players, and one of them was shirtless, wearing these pink and blue clown pants. The singer comes out, and he's got white Levi's and suspenders with no shirt, and his hair all teased up. That was Lane Staley.
Yeah.
And they were terrible. And the first song they train wrecked because the kick drum would hit the wall. The sound of the kick drum would hit the wall and bounce back, and it threw his time off.
Oh yeah.
And they had to restart the first song like 3 times.
That's so funny.
And it was what became Alice in Chains.
Right.
Wow, that's cool.
Like, it was one of their first gigs.
Big respect for Alice in Chains. So Jim, to your point, like that's one of my favorites for sure of that era, the Seattle being the center of the music. But I remember when the kids were young enough to sit on my lap back when iTunes was a thing. Did you guys do iTunes for a while?
Yeah.
The playlist. I mean, I had 10,000 songs, and I would go through and organize all the playlists and all that kind of stuff. And my kids would sit on my lap, and we would go through music, and I'd be like, okay, this is Elvis, and I'd play some Elvis. This is the Beatles. And so they would like be learning all the era of, and I think it was somewhere around that time we watched the remake of the movie Lassie, which was probably remade, I don't know, in the 2000s somewhere. And the opening riff that night was Sammy, was probably, I'm gonna guess she was 5-6 years old, was Man in the Box by Alice in Chains in the movie.
Okay.
And Sammy, I could tell, was like, what is that? Like it totally, that whole riff, so great,
so cool.
And she goes, "You didn't play that one, Dad? What is that? What is that?" And Sammy loves Alice in Chains. She just loves that heavy, crunchy. So I'm with you, and so was my oldest.
So what music that you've played for your kids have they taken into their record collection?
Seth, he likes the 80s. I mean, it sounds like, and from what you're saying, David, I think all these kids have an affinity for the 80s, whether they like to admit it or not.
Yeah.
But they also listen to their newer stuff now. But and I'm not sure. I guess I don't pay attention enough, but I don't know what he listens to other than that, But every time I get in the car with him, he puts on an 80s. So I don't know if he's doing that for me or if that's what he listens to all the time. But
yeah,
that's a tough one. There's some metal groups for sure. In fact, Sammy. So Sammy, I think of Sammy probably the most because I think her music palette is so much wider than at least that I know of. If with the other two, maybe Sammy and I spent more time with music. But she likes Rainbow. I mean, old back when it was Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah. I actually prefer the one with Graham Bonnet.
Yeah.
The Dio era.
Since You've Been Gone. And then so she likes Alice in Chains. But what I'm surprised at with all, maybe you feel this way about Seth, it seems like when an 80s song comes on, they all know the words.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They just sing along, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think they take, at least in Seth's case, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, he takes the time to actually know the real words.
Yeah. Where we're just like singing.
A lot of times I'm just like, whatever I think it is.
That was a lot more difficult when we were kids because there wasn't an internet to look up the songs,
Right.
And a lot of the albums didn't have the lyrics.
Yeah.
So you had to guess.
Yeah. We were just tonight before this, we were him and I were always, we'll tie it to anything conversation we're having, but we were talking about Dr. Feelgood, the song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought the lyrics went one way, and he's like, "No."
Right. This is your son explaining Motley Crue lyrics to you.
Exactly.
Our era.
That is.
Go figure.
That's awesome.
Well, to be fair, maybe you heard one of Vince Neil's newer live performances, in which case, who knows what he's saying?
And he only sings every third word now
because he can't sing anymore. The poor guy.
I tell you what, I Motley Crue, probably if I had to choose one group that I like, Motley Crue is probably my group.
Okay.
And even after that, I followed Vince Neil when he went solo and bought his albums, and I didn't think he was too bad. But
he's got Steve Stevens from Billy Idol's band playing guitar for him.
Yeah, that's right.
That Steve Stevens is a monster player.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of attention playing with Billy Idol, but he's got a solo album, a solo project called Atomic Playboys, which is really, really good. And then he's done some solo albums, like instrumental solo albums.
Yeah.
He's got one called Flamenco A Go-Go, which he plays mostly acoustic stuff, and it is mind-blowingly good.
I've heard of that. I just haven't heard of it.
Wow.
It is fantastic. The guy, I love that guy.
And I loved Motley Crue in their heyday.
Yeah.
I just, anything live now, I feel like they're done.
Yeah.
Well, too. I think it was the last concert I was even at was 5-6 years ago. It was Motley Crue and Kiss.
Oh wow.
Went and saw him at White River. And
yeah.
It was good, but
yeah.
That's old school stuff there.
Yeah.
I think Kiss is done this year, aren't they?
Well, they've retired like 5 times, and then they come back and keep going.
Yeah.
I think when I heard "I Love It Loud," that was like, okay, who is this? Like, I was a little late to the Kiss band bandwagon, but that
Kiss. "I Love It Loud" was either off of Unmasked or Music from the Elder or one of those.
Yeah.
Like it was like after Dynasty, after the initial. Like I lost interest after Dynasty and the 4 solo albums, and I kind of dropped off for a while.
So when they took the makeup off, you kind of
I came back a little bit for like Lick It Up. And
well, that's Lick It Up. I mean, that's what's funny. I didn't really know Kiss that well, and then you guys remember Joe Button?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, he lived across the street from me, and he had a reel-to-reel player.
Okay.
And he got Lick It Up, and I'm like, wow, this is a great song. Who is this? And it was Kiss, and that was the new style. That was without makeup, correct?
Yeah, it was the first. That was the first album without makeup, and then it was also, but they had also replaced Ace Frehley. So at that point, Vinnie Vincent was the guitar player.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
And he took him into the 80s shreddy guitar players. And it was, Vinnie Vincent, and then Mark St. John and Bruce Kulick for a while. And Bruce Kulick had a good run with them. And then they tried to bring Ace back. And now it's Tommy, I'm not going to remember his name. He was from the band Black and Blue.
Oh yeah.
And he was Ace Frehley's guitar tech for a while. And then he filled in because Ace was really unreliable.
Black and Blue. That's a throwback name.
Yeah. Right, they were a Portland band.
I remember that group.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw, so you brought up concert. So of that era, my wife and I have seen Def Leppard twice. Like I would have to, like, if you say Motley Crue, I'd have to say Def Leppard for me. It's just, there's so many songs that I love.
We had this conversation when we had dinner with you guys.
That's right. And so they still sound great. And it could be that they're piping in all kinds of auto tuning, and I don't care because it sounds like it used to sound.
Honestly, for Def Leppard, I will believe that they do their own vocals because Vivian Campbell's playing with them now.
Yeah.
And he used to play with Dio, and he played in a band called River Dogs. And I really love Rob Lamoth, the singer for River Dogs. He is an incredibly cool guy. I'm Facebook friends with him and in this River Dogs group, and he shows up to all the Zoom chats on Sunday mornings and just like very gracious, very amazingly cool guy.
That's cool.
But Vivian is like, that band, they work hard.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't believe for a second if you told me, no, they it's all backing tracks or auto tune. I wouldn't believe that of Def Leppard. I think they're
sounded great both times.
Yeah.
Journey did not sound like they didn't hold up in my opinion. Okay. And I think that singer had an off night.
Was it with guy. Arnell?
Yeah. I think he had an off night, but yeah. But Def would be my group. You know what we haven't talked about yet is Queensryche. Did you like Queensryche, Jim?
No. Okay. But it's so funny. They it was this last fall, maybe they played in Wenatchee. And
they have a new singer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Todd.
Yeah. So went and saw them there. They did, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So my buddy Eric, he and I go to concerts together all the time. We've seen probably 100 shows together. He was my co-host when we interviewed Anders Johansson from Yngwie's band.
Oh, Yngwie Malmsteen.
Eric is friends with Todd LaTorre. They've been friends in Florida where they grew up.
And Todd's the new singer.
He runs their website. He knows all the Queensryche guys, and they're all just like amazingly nice guys. Yeah. Very, very cool. Very down to earth. Really approachable and just genuine.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy when Todd joined the band, they brought back that rock edge that they had kind of lost, trying to go like, remember when Guns N' Roses released their second albums, like the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, where everything got like overproduced and the songs got just a little more symphonic and a little more complicated and just a little more like
overproduced,
kind of shoved. Yeah. A little overproduced. Queensryche was kind of going that way, and then Todd went back to no, we're a rock band. We're a hard rock band. Let's do that really well. And I think they did that. And I think they kind of pulled back into that. And they're doing great. They're doing like all of the rock tour, the rock cruises.
Yeah.
And
some of their recordings back with the other singer,
Jeff Tate.
Jeff Tate, thank you. When they were in their prime, some of their YouTube stuff from Japan is insane. Jeff Tate's voice is like none other that I've ever heard at that time in his life. Like that's one that at the time I'm like, yeah, they're okay. But now I listen back, and as a musician, I'm like, dang, that's so good.
There's three metal singers that I would put in that same category, and that would be Ronnie James Dio, Rob Halford, and Jeff Tate.
Yeah.
You know, those three together are like, they have that operatic quality, that like glass cutting, high pitched squeal when they want
crazy octaves like that. They can,
and effortless range through all of it. Yeah.
So what about newer band? So Alter Bridge. Gamble, you're familiar with Alter Bridge?
Love Alter Bridge. No.
You might actually like Alter Bridge. Miles Kennedy, Spokane kid.
Yep.
Actually, I think of him in the movie Rockstar, which was a great movie.
He plays with Slash.
Yes.
Slash's solo band now.
And the movie Rockstar, did you ever see that movie? It's with Jennifer Aniston and
Mark Wahlberg.
It's actually really entertaining. Yeah. And it's about, plucking the kid out of nowhere to be the lead singer of a band. And anyway, Miles Kennedy was actually in that movie. And why is that relevant? Other than the fact that when I saw Alter Bridge, I'm like, wait, wasn't that guy? So his claim to fame, I guess, was that movie. But he's a phenomenal singer.
Yeah.
It's really crunchy, edgy, but very as a vocalist. Him and Mark, is it Tremonti?
Yeah.
Their vocals together and their guitar playing together is insane. It's so good.
Yeah.
Check them out. You might like it.
There's a song called Ghost of Days Gone By that you would totally dig.
Okay. Yeah.
Alter Bridge.
And I'll remember and I'll post the links to everything. So after
it's like a very, very musical. It's like a very, very musical Motley Crue. Like it's just that deep.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making it easy, Carl, because I'm not taking any notes here.
I do all the work. It's good. It's cool. I got it.
We're probably totally taking you off your
game.
Squirrel. We're chasing something and then going over there.
I was thinking about something, and I don't know. I don't know if where our conversation's going here, but I think I told you before we started. I had a Dave Adams story and an Evan Sands. But anyway, I got thinking about music and how it invokes memories. You hear a song and I know exactly where I was at when I either first heard it or the most important time I heard it or whatever. David somehow got a hold of Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, and he might have played it 100 times in a row.
100, 150, easy.
We played basketball out in his yard, and just kept it going on repeat. So.
The arm on the record.
Yep, that's
right, which our kids wouldn't understand.
I love. Explain what a record player is.
Exactly.
Hand them
the sound of dropping the needle on there.
Yeah,
I remember that, Jim.
What do you do with this?
Yeah, because we would also that was the era where Rocky, was big, and we'd go for runs, and I feel like we had a Walkman or something. We'd be running to Eye of the Tiger, thinking we're all tough.
Yeah, the big Walkmans, the big fat bulky ones.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
So tell me about when we were at Evans. I remember being there, but I'm trying to remember some of the bands that Evan was into.
Evan was into what Evan used to end up listening to. Kenny Rogers a lot. There was Eddie Rabbit, that I Love a Rainy Night song.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson. You like Michael Jackson?
Crystal Gale. It was kind of the country-ish pop stuff.
Okay.
REO Speedwagon. I remember listening to that quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, and I always felt like REO Speedwagon was like our girlfriend's favorite band.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they had little REO Speedwagon was kind of like Journey in that they had the ability to rock,
right?
But they kind of went into the ballady stuff a little too often. It was like their crutch.
Yeah.
It was like when Bryan Adams started doing soundtracks. It's like, come on, dude, you used to rock. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. What the funny thing about Evan though is if you, and Carl, you could probably attest to this, but he was downstairs and he'd get done yelling at his mom to leave him alone, and then REO Speedwagon come on or something.
Keep the fire burning.
Evan and I have we both had like a lousy home life. So if he wasn't over at my place, I was over at his place, and we were just like constantly. He was my he was my saving grace so many times, and I think I was that for him as well.
We should have had him here.
And
we should have had him here. Maybe next time.
I'll get a hold of him. He and I before COVID, he and I and Mike Roddy, we got together for a beer a few years back.
Nice.
And it was good catching up with those guys.
I think I saw that you guys did, and I think for what it's worth, Facebook friended Mike because I hadn't seen him since the 70s or whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's still doing well. He's working at the Costco just up the road.
Nice.
And we've run into him a couple of times. And
nice.
But Evan and I, we used to, like, his bedroom window was facing the street and mine was on the side. So I used to stick a flashlight out and like flick the flashlight a couple times when it was time for us to sneak out and go snowball cars or get into trouble or whatever. You know, we used to sneak out in the weekends at like 2 a.m. and we go over to Okanagan Street and throw snowballs at cars. And
sure,
Gamble and I never did that.
we got caught at your house, I think.
I know the phrase. I probably shouldn't say it here. This is a G-rated show, right? Where the guy stopped the car.
Really not. The only time I ever got caught was with Jason Schroeder and his sister Loretta, and who else was it? Tom Colley.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And and Jimmy McWiggins, and I can't remember who else.
That's funny.
And yeah, we got caught. We were up on Cherry Street along the canal, throwing from in the canal, looping them up over the bridge. And
those are the good old days.
Now thinking, oh, that's a great place to hide. It's like,
right.
It's completely bare and it's snow on the ground, so everything is lit up.
Right.
And you see 8 little shitheads running down the canal. It's like, okay, guess who got a beating?
Yeah. Well, Jim, were you with us at Nats when we threw him off the roof and the blue van stopped? It was like at the end of junior high, 7th or 8th grade. I feel like we all go down to Nat Hampson's house and just cause trouble. Do you remember? And so we threw these balloons off the roof onto this blue van. The blue van stops, backs up, gets out. We're now hiding on the opposite peak looking down. And it was my uncle.
Oh.
So my uncle's pounding on the door, and I'm just like, "That's my uncle." I don't know.
I wasn't there. But I'm interested to hear your memory on the snowball thing. What did the guy say? Because I can't remember.
Okay, pardon my French. He stops his car. I think we had him ice packed. Like I get hit pretty hard. Right, we're behind the hedge. God damn miserable sons of bitches.
That's right.
And we're just hiding in the bushes. So whatever, every once in a while I think of that phrase and I think of you. But I mean, I think of you for other reasons. But
oh, sure.
God damn miserable sons of bitches.
But like there wasn't a lot to do. You know, there wasn't a lot to do when we were kids. Mm-mm. You know, there was. The roller skating rink was a ways away.
Yeah.
We had the movies and we had the bowling alley, and that was about it.
And fight scenes.
Yeah. And backyard boxing.
Backyard boxing. Yeah, just we were all knuckleheads, and
we were, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was fun. I mean, I have a lot of fond memories of growing up there, but it was good to get out.
Yeah.
So Carl, I don't want to hijack your show talking about non-music.
No, please do.
For anybody else that's going to listen to this, if they are, Carl at this Evan Sands house across the street from his, one day we were downstairs and Carl threw a steel-tipped dart and stabbed me in the leg.
Hang on. What happened just before that? Who all was throwing darts at who?
Well, I think we were all throwing the darts, but you were the only one stabbing me.
I do remember this.
I do. I hucked it hard too because I was mad. I'd already been stabbed like 3 times. Sam Brandt threw one and it stuck in the back of my head.
Oh, I don't remember that.
So I was just like, at that point, I was just like, I just whirled and threw it at the first person I could find, and it was you.
And again, I don't want to hijack this, but if you guys think back to that, I don't know, 4-block square block area that was there. I mean, there was a lot of us that lived in really close, and we were all knuckleheads, David.
You're right. All of us.
Yeah. Yeah. The vacant lot that was a block down from us. I remember us all riding our bikes in that, and that was like a BMX track.
The Lawsons that lived right next door. Yeah, what do we call that little? We had a name for that.
The dip, I think, or the dip,
or something like that. Yeah, it had the hours, it was so cool.
Yeah,
yeah, and then I think Tracy Trotter's still in her mom's house on Highland.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And yeah. And her daughter is running for like Miss Washington or something now.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
That's awesome.
To your point, Jim, and Carl, about the 4 or 5 blocks, like we all hung out, we all went to the same schools. Like that's one thing about today's culture, not to go down, we'll get back to music, but like my kids, we live in a northeast Seattle. It's very, Carl, where we live, and it's Mayberry-ish, there's a little store I can walk to and sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. But all the kids that are the same age, they all go to different schools. And so there isn't that neighborhood posse of kids that grew up together like we did. And I miss that for my kids, where we just like these kinds of friendships are harder to come by, I think, for the current generation, because everybody's so spread out.
Yeah. And I think that it's more of a national culture now, as opposed to a neighborhood culture.
Yeah, that's
because kids are on their phone and they've got social media, and it's like, oh, I'm talking to my friend in Florida, or I'm talking to my friend in California right now, or I'm having a Zoom call with these kids over here. And we try to keep tabs on that, but and also that 4-block radius now for my 12-year-old is, I don't want her going 4 blocks away where I don't know where she's at.
Right.
And
Wenatchee,
if I was in Wenatchee, I'd probably feel different about it. But I'm in Seattle, where that's a different story.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we do live on a quiet little dead end street, just like we grew up on.
Yep.
Different times.
Different times.
Yeah, a lot's changed.
So Carl, I have a question for you. What music are you making, or are you playing around with now? Because you've clearly got a bazillion guitars behind you.
Yeah.
You are handcrafting, and
I am. I'm making a lot of guitars. I'm still playing a lot. I have like my style, I guess. I still kind of lean a lot to the 80s stuff. I still have a lot of
Eddie.
A lot of the Van Halen-y stuff, but I've kind of gone back to it. And I also do, a lot of it kind of leans towards the.
Yeah. I can't hear, but I think you might have the.
And it kind of has classical vibes to it. And
yeah. I think you might have original sound for musicians. No, it's off. Yeah.
But it's. I don't know if I try to play things that interest me. I try to kind of push myself. If I find that I'm not playing enough classically tinged, or I'm not playing enough scales, if I find I'm struggling with certain chord voicings and things like that, then I'll kind of spend a lot of time and dig into it.
Yeah.
And kind of work on the areas that I feel I need to improve.
Yeah.
I went through a phase where I realized that I was relying too much on my left hand with hammer-ons and pull-offs, and I wasn't picking solid enough. So I was working on my, sweep picking, and I was working on my alternate picking and string skipping and things like that. So I would dig into that, and I would um, you know, just kind of figuring out what areas I wanted to work on and what areas I felt like I needed to improve on. Yeah. And then hanging out with friends of mine who are monster guitar players that completely bury me, which is fun for me because I
stretch you.
The type of people, there's a couple types of people. There's some people that if you play next to people that blow you away, it makes you want to put your instrument down and just kind of like you get frustrated and you walk away. And then what I do is I just want to absorb as much from them as I can to get better. And it's just like it makes me want to go home and play for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
My buddy Dan, who's been on a couple of the episodes already, he went to the Guitar Institute down in California, and he is a monster guitar player, phenomenal guitar player.
Pretty cool.
And just like, and one of the funniest human beings on the planet. He'll be on one of the next, I think in the next couple episodes. There's him and my friend Jay, who Dan and Jay were in a band together, and my friend Steve Bergstrom, and the three of them together are like, they could be, if they weren't musicians, they could be stand-up comedians easily. So I'm just going to kind of wind them up and just kind of sit quietly and let them prattle on, because it'll be entertaining if nothing else.
I think it's cool you're still playing. And I mean, that's one thing that I don't have regrets per se, but if I were to go back, I would have picked up a guitar a lot earlier, because that's such a cool instrument. I'm a hack, you know.
I mean, but David, you got to realize you have the piano, right? And and I'm again jealous of both of you guys are incredibly talented musicians. So it's good to be able to sit here in the company of
a couple knuckleheads who can tweak out a couple notes.
Yeah. I started on the trumpet, and I was not good. I wasn't great. I mean, I played through the marching band and all through high school, but until I picked up a guitar and I realized that this comes a lot easier to me than the trumpet ever did.
Yeah.
And it like, once it was in my hands, it made sense.
Yeah.
You know, right. And I remember my friend Brian Granger, and he was one of my rock climbing buddies, and we were taking martial arts at the same time, and I'd go hang out with him, and he had an acoustic guitar, and he was sitting there, and I kind of picked it up, and I was just kind of playing it, and his mom came in, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know you played guitar." And I'm like, "I don't." And she's like, "Sounds like you do."
You should be, right?
Sounds like you do.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I was just kind of noodling around on it, just like I wasn't even paying attention. My hands were just kind of going.
Yeah.
And then after that, it just felt right. It felt comfortable. And then,
that's awesome.
And then after that, I got a guitar, and it was off to the races. After that, it was like, get home from school and play all day long. And
that's like when you find your thing, it's like my cousin Reagan, who maybe should be on your show. He was in a band called Shim that did a bunch of stuff around Seattle. And he was like and my other cousin was the drummer for Shim. So Reagan,
Pat Crow was my he was my sensei. So that's his nephews.
Perfect, right? So we all, as you know, Jim, like we were a piano family, like not just me, and like my cousins were, and everybody. The joke was, everybody got to play piano, right? So like it was just non-negotiable. And then you got to pick one other instrument. And so I remember I was like, I'm going to pick drums. They're like, no, you're going to play viola. I'm like, what happened to me picking? Yeah. So I always wanted to be a drummer, but I was a violist. But they did this with Reagan, who is probably 8-9 years younger than me. He struggled so much with piano. And I remember his parents left one weekend, and he had to memorize his piece on the piano for the recital. And over 2 days, he got so frustrated with the piano, he picked up his dad's guitar, and it was some Mozart piece. He picked up the guitar, and over 2 days bloodied his fingers and learned this thing on the guitar with just by trial and error. They came back, and this is him telling me this true story. They come back, they're like, "Okay, son, let's hear your recital piece on the piano." He goes, "Well, it's a little different." He grabs the guitar and starts playing it. And at the end of this, I think his mom, Nancy, looked at Mike and the dad and said, "Make the kids done with piano."
Yeah, all right.
And he just took off with guitar after that. You just know, You find your thing.
Yeah. And like woodshop was a blast for me at school, and that's where this all came from too.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
It was, and being a cheapskate, it's like when I was lumping it and waiting tables and bartending, it's like I couldn't afford $1,000 Les Paul.
Right.
I couldn't afford the high end like guitars with the Floyd Rose and all that. So I had cheaper guitars, and then I would always tweak them. I was replacing the pickups and rewiring them and doing this and hot rodding them here, and I got really good at that. And then I started doing it for my friends, and then I remember back to woodshop, and I'm like, a guitar body really isn't that difficult, and I made one, and it turned out pretty cool. And then I started doing that, and then once we bought the house, I was the garage became the wood shop. Right. And then making guitars became like really fun and really therapeutic. You come home after a long day, you go work in the wood shop for a couple hours, and like this, like having that guitar, look at the grain in that.
It's pretty cool.
I wouldn't have been able to afford that guitar.
Right.
And I made that.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
That's really nice.
So
I have two of Carl's guitars hanging in the other room over there.
Nice.
So my girls learned how to play on.
Okay. Are they still playing?
Yeah. Yeah. Good. They picked up a couple of different types of guitars. So we don't have your collection, but we've got a few more. Okay. And a couple of my girls have become quite good. And one's taken to recording and creating her own music. That's on my YouTube channel. And it's really fun to just watch them take the, I guess the base of music that we've provided and just take off. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah. We're going to be doing Amy and I were just talking, and we're now that like COVID is over and we haven't really had people over, we haven't really entertained, and we want to start having barbecues this summer. We want to have friends over, and we'd love to have you guys over, have the girls, whoever's home, and show them the recording studio. And I mean, I know you guys record at home. You guys got a
right here
setup.
In this room. It's not like as good as yours.
Well, I mean,
it's garage band and on the cheap.
Yeah, but I mean, I can show them, I can show them what I do and what I've got, and like maybe help them with any recording questions or recording like techniques, and show them how I record guitars, how I record vocals, stuff like that.
I would learn a few things from you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it, because like I said, I spend hours down here. It's so much fun. I get so caught up in it.
It's cool.
So nice. Yeah. Well, you're lucky. You're lucky you have the opportunity to do that.
I really am. Yeah. I've been really fortunate. I was miserable back home in Wenatchee. And then like when I left, I came over here. I actually came over here to try and be a studio musician, thinking, oh yeah, Seattle, it's a big city. They must have studio musicians. Not really.
You wanted to be the next Steve Lukather.
Right. Luke would be, he would be
all those
something to aim for.
We haven't talked about Toto, but those guys are insane.
Yeah, he's amazing. He is such a great player. He played all the guitar on Michael Jackson's Thriller and bass on most of it. And
basically
like thousands of albums. This guy's
that Thriller album is basically Michael Jackson with Toto backing them.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that, but sorry.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Lukather is an amazing player.
So you got to Seattle, and didn't you end up going on the road with a band, Carl?
Not Toto.
No. But like when you got to Seattle and
we toured around, and like we played up in Canada and down to Oregon and a few of those, and it was like there was I think there was like three various bands that we did like little West Coast tours with, and it was fun. It was like there's a lot of band stories and a lot of road stories and different different
some you can tell, some you can't tell.
Yeah, but it's
the
cool thing. What I got to say, what I really love about Seattle is in LA, they want us to, everybody wants to succeed, but they want everybody else to fail. Whereas Seattle is it is a family. Mm-hmm. So even now, if you have friends that are musicians, you have friends that are in a band, your friends have a gig coming up and they're like, oh, well, we have our friends here and here. We'd mm-hmm. love to have them on with us. Right. Can we pull them in? So it's a group of friends that play. And if it's not, it's soon to be a group of friends.
Right.
You know? Right. I've seen, I don't know how many shows where the drummer can't make it, or the drummer's car broke down. So the opening band is like, oh, well, we'll you know, our guy can fill in, or do you need his drum kit? Or, you know, I don't know how many times I've seen a good example. My friend Dan, his band opened for Jake E. Lee for Red Dragon Cartel. And the band's van broke down and he didn't have a bass rig. So they used Dan's bass guy. He's just like, yeah, use ours, plug in, you're good. Cool. Yeah. You know, and like our old band, I mean, you know, we've seen the guys from Soundgarden would be there. And, you know, I don't know how many times Matt Cameron, he filled in for, you know, whoever, and he'd sit in with the other band because, you know, their drummer was gone. Mm-hmm. And that's just how it was. Everybody was happy to help out everybody else.
Right. That resonates with, you know, having lived in Wenatchee, and then I lived in LA for 9 years and then back to Seattle. Mm-hmm. I always felt it took me a few years to acclimate back to Seattle. But to your point, Carl, people would say, what's the difference between, say, LA and Seattle? And I always would say, and I still feel like this is to some extent, people in LA are really friendly, but they're not necessarily nice.
Yeah.
People in Seattle aren't really very friendly, but they're super nice.
Yeah.
They're just a little slower. They're not as demonstrative. They're not like, hey, let's get together. They don't say that stuff because why would they if they don't mean, you know, like they're interesting. So it's just nice people here generally in the music scene.
Yeah. I love the musical community here. And it's good to see some of them get the recognition they deserve. One of the guys that he's probably my favorite local guitar player. His name is Tim DiGiulio, and he's played with everyone from Kim Virant to the Stereo Embers. He's played with Rick Friel's, like iterations of whatever Rick Friel's band is. He plays with Flight to Mars, which is a cover band, and Mike McCready's in it. And in my opinion, Tim is a better guitar player. And I've seen him play with Mike, and Mike literally do double takes and just like,
what did he just do?
Wow. And Tim, he was just talking that he had played on some of Duff McKagan's new stuff.
Nice.
His next solo album, and he's laid down some guitar tracks. And another guitar player, Jeff Fielder, he's played with Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees, and he's played with Tedeschi Trucks, Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi, married couple. Derek Trucks is Butch Trucks' nephew from Allman Brothers. And they're like a nationally touring band, and Jeff plays with them. And he just got back from touring with Nancy Wilson from Heart.
Nice.
And, you know, I mean, world-class guitar player. You know, nice. He's phenomenal and an incredibly nice guy. Danny Newcomb, who was one of the guitar players for Goodness, he had a show, and he had Tim DiGiulio playing guitar, Andy Stoller, who's a monster bass player, playing bass, and Jeff Fielder playing drums. Jeff's not a drummer, but he was back there.
Yeah. Hacking away.
A world-class touring guitar player playing drums.
And
it was awesome. It was so much fun.
Are there any Gamble? Are there any Wenatchee bands that are starting to make it, or you're following? Or
no, I don't think so. And the bands that I listen to here locally are, they're not rock. They're more of folky style, I guess.
Yeah.
But they all just stay local. I haven't heard of one that's even. I haven't heard of a band locally here that even wants to be bigger.
Interesting.
My cousin Mike, he plays in a couple bands, and
he's a good bass player.
He's a great bass player, and they play locally, and that's all. And they keep busy, but that's all they want to do. They don't.
Yeah. Priorities.
It is, and I somebody asked why I'm not playing in a band, or if I was interested in playing in a band, and I'm really not anymore. Mostly because, like, it's a grind. For one, fighting with club owners to get paid, and playing going on third on the bill on a Tuesday night, going on at 11 o'clock and playing till 12:30 or till midnight, and then getting home at 2 a.m. and getting up at 6 and going to work. It's like those days are gone.
If there's anybody listening to this who wants to follow their dream, follow your dream.
Yeah,
follow your dream. But this isn't going to be the group. We're all practical to a fault.
It's that's a young man show, right?
Exactly.
It is. But here's the thing, it's like, I am happy to go out on a Friday and Saturday night and support my friends and support a band I love. Eve Clark, her band Trip the Wire. They had a CD release party at Tony V's up in Everett a couple weeks ago, and that place was packed. It was fantastic to see. She's got the voice of, like, she's a really, really powerful singer. She's got like that Ann Wilson, Pat Benatar vibe, but her band has an 80s hard rock, 80s metal feel to them.
Nice. So to get out more.
And dynamic. They're great band. In fact, they're playing in a couple weeks. I'll post that. But the CD release party, and it was great because I ran into a bunch of my old friends. I ran into Dan and Jay, and James Kennedy was there, and Eve's husband Jim was there taking pictures, and I finally got to meet him. And just running into a bunch of other people that I see at shows all the time, and that's what the crowds are like. It's like, I remember seeing bands at biker bars or dive bars, and it's like you expect fights to break out, and in Seattle it's like everybody's got their arm around each other and we're hugging, and it's just like, it's good to see everybody. People come up and they bump you on the back, and you're just turning around. It's like, hey, and it really is just like this,
cool.
this community of friends, and I love it. Especially once you feel like you go to enough shows and you feel like you're part of it, and you're accepted. It's like a big family.
That's a fun thing for you to have been a part of. Like, I was never in the band scene. I have some friends from my music college days that went off and pursued it professionally, and I'm rooting and cheering on for some have already made it, and they're doing great. And I have so much respect for people who carve out a niche in the music industry, because it's not easy. It's not an easy gig. I was too practical for a fault. I was like, I'm going to get a job, and I'll do this in my spare time. Gamble, I'm like, I'm not a risk taker, but I'll plug one of my friends. We haven't talked about movie soundtracks. Like, I love, movie soundtracks. You think of Hans Zimmer and, John Williams and all the different people.
Danny Elfman.
Elfman, right?
Yeah.
If anybody's listening to this, one of the best documentaries I've seen in a long time, if you like movie soundtracks, is called Score.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you seen this?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It just goes through the history of the movie music back when they had the organ in the old theater to modern day, and how music has shaped movies and changed movies, and it brings it all to the current. And if you like the sound of some of these scores, they play them, of course, throughout as you get to Jaws, and and then I'll have Spielberg talking with John Williams about how that even came to be. And I just think that stuff is fascinating. But point I bring all this up, one of my friends from college, he was our accompanist, and this is a guy that when I would audition for a show, I'd show up and say, this is what I'm going to do. And he goes, what key do you want it in? I'm like, can you just like that, do that? And he's like, yeah. And he was just incredibly gifted and play it in whatever key. And let's raise it a half step. Oh, that's better. And he wouldn't miss a note. Well, he's gone on and he's created this business for him called Brand X Music. His name's Tom Geyer in LA, Southern California. And he is hired by the Hans Zimmers, the John Williams, to basically do the trailer clips for all the big movies. Wow. And so watch Brand X Music in the name Tom Geyer. If you're listening to this, Tom, I'm cheering you on. But he may be moving into that next like scoring of big shows. So I'm cheering that guy on, because I've known him for a long, long time. He's so talented.
That is
so talented.
Perfect.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
It's I find myself thinking about this too, is who from Wenatchee made it out and like made a name for themselves, or everybody had like really high expectations for Derek Pete to go to go become a big rock star. He left, and I think he went to Nashville, and he was like a studio musician for years in Nashville. Yeah. And like, other than that, I can't really think of I can't really think of anybody from Wenatchee,
right
now. But
yeah, not from a music standpoint, at least that I can think of.
I don't know either.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Stumper. That's the stumper for the panel right there.
Well,
if there's any listener who wants to write a comment in later, who's from Wenatchee that made it
anybody
famous in the music
from
industry.
Wenatchee. But see,
exactly.
Like we have a like our sphere of knowledge is kind of limited to who we went to school with, and like give or take 2 or 3 years. Of after that, we've kind of lost track of who everybody is. So it's tough.
Yeah.
It is. But
well, this is fun.
I can't think of anybody that was at least in the class 86 that really even had a band. Or was there any bands? Or
Jamie Howe played in a band or something?
Yeah, and Stacy Matthews, he's still kicking around. He's still kicking around trying to put bands together.
Okay.
So I'll try and get Stacy on one.
Remember,
of these
but you know what? We were the worst class in 22 years. So.
Yeah, everybody always. Yeah, that was the.
Why would anything good come out of there?
Yeah, everybody just kind of doomed us to.
I forget which teacher said that about our class.
Pell. It was Pell.
Worst class in 22 years. Thanks.
Mr. Pell. Yeah, I kind of picture Miss DeYoung saying that about us too.
I don't know what their barometer was, but I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I have no regrets. I think we all turned out okay. We're all like responsible adults in most regards,
I think, and the thing I appreciate, and I'm just looking at other people and where they graduated, pretty close class. I mean, I knew a lot of people, that I didn't even hang with really, but I mean, Carl, we didn't really run the same circles in high school, but
yeah,
I consider you a friend. So
yeah, me too.
It's,
yeah. Like I said, I have a lot of fond memories of everybody, and like when we had the reunion a few years ago, a couple people were like, "Hey man, I'm sorry we were so rough on you," and I'm just like, we were all shitheads. You know what? It's like,
right.
Honestly, I probably, at least half the beatings I caught were well deserved, and I probably deserved a few more. And honestly, it's like, are you the same person you were when you were, when you were 14 years old? I hope not. I hope
not the same person from 5 years ago.
I'm not. Yeah, right. It's like I don't have any regrets, and I'm certainly not holding any grudges. And it's like, I mean, the fact that we've been friends for 40 years at least, and we got together and hang out and nothing but good times. It's like, what? That's a win. There's,
totally.
As far as I'm concerned, this is awesome.
Yeah. Right. Well, I appreciate you having it. I mean, you guys are musicians. I'm just a,
listener.
But again.
But I appreciate this, Carl, having us on. This is awesome.
Well, I'm glad you did. Thanks for doing it. Because like I said, you guys were a big part of the inspiration for me doing this in the first place. And it felt perfect to have you guys as one of the shows, because this is exactly the conversations that we would have had, 30 years ago, sitting in Evan's basement, or you couldn't ask for, actually 40 years ago, a
little music, a little this and that.
Yeah. Activity night, darts. Activity night at Pioneer Junior High. What songs are we going to insist that they play?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's going to be, somebody's going to try and slip in Big Balls by AC/DC,
exactly.
just to watch the teachers freak out.
Yeah, The Stroke by Billy Squier.
Oh,
right. Yeah.
The Knack, My Sharona.
My Sharona. There you go.
And and what was the one? The ZZ Top, and,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
But you're back to you, Judas Priest. You got another thing coming.
Still, yeah.
And Junior High, wasn't that when High and Dry came out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was High and Dry, and then right after that was Pyromania. Yeah.
Yep.
Saturday Night. It's such a good riff.
Oh,
and I went out once. I got High and Dry, and then I got Pyromania. Then I went back and got On Through the Night, and then I feel like there was another one before that. But
On Through the Night was the first, and then High and Dry, or were those reversed? And then I think it was On Through the Night. And then Pyromania was number 3, and then Hysteria. And I went to the Hysteria. I went to the Hysteria concert, and that was, And then right after that was the Scorpions and Aerosmith, and then like this string of concert, like hundreds of concerts. I've still got, like, check this out.
Dave, you think about I think of Scorpions, I think of drinking homemade wine.
Oh god.
Yeah. They don't even have these anymore. This is so disappointing.
What are those, the tickets to the shows?
Stubs, yeah, ticket stubs for.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The homemade wine comment also to listeners: don't try that at home.
Right.
Lucky we're alive.
My
crushing grapes, putting yeast on there, put it in your basement, and let's wait about 6 months and then drink it. Oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, wasn't that? Yeah, my stepdad, my ex-stepdad,
so stupid.
He had a wine room down in the laundry room, and we had like boxes of that crap. Remember that? And it was all like it had like sediment in it, and it was all disgusting.
Oh yeah.
We'd sneak up into my upstairs and go to the balcony, and take some sips, and then go off to activity night. And I don't remember. I think, Jim, you might have been the smart one, as you always were. Like, I don't think I'm drinking that.
No. I wish I could take claim to that, but I do remember eating a lot of crackers in between trying to hit the taste out of your mouth. So,
God,
yeah,
terrible.
I remember stealing a bottle of gin from my mom, and then filling it half back up with tap water, so she wouldn't like figure it out. And I think I'm sure she did.
Of course.
I don't remember ever getting in trouble for it. The only time I ever really got in trouble was the party I threw in junior year when she went to Hawaii for a week. I threw the house party. We moved all the furniture into the garage, and
oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
Oh.
That was on Highland Drive there?
Yeah. Yeah, it was in February. We had a roving patrol to make sure nobody passed out in the bushes outside.
I hope I didn't break anything.
What?
I hope I didn't break anything.
No, you guys were good. I think Burke was trying to start a fight.
It was always Burke.
Always Burke.
Always Burke.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I was really sad to hear. I was really sad to hear Burke pass.
Yeah.
It would have been good to see him and to like catch up.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing that I think about is as we move on, as we get older, there's going to be, there's more and more, right? And I think that a couple of years ago, Walt Horan hit me pretty hard,
yeah.
And now that was a COVID thing, but it's like, wow, we're all getting older now, and
yeah,
it's so anyway,
100% agree with that. Every day is a gift.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, I've been really fortunate. I think I attribute a lot of it to just luck and more luck than like talent or good choices. I think I kind of stumbled into like good career and a lot of things that I wouldn't have had opportunities for, and I was able to take advantage of those at those times. And like, if you would have told me my life would be this when we were kids in Evan's basement,
yeah,
I wouldn't have believed you.
Right.
Right. You're gonna have a recording studio, and you're gonna have a great house and a wife, and an awesome daughter, and and now it's like I work for a green energy company, and after
and you're going to be on and in 40 years you're going to be on an app called Zoom with Jim and David.
Right.
And you're going to be like, what's an app?
Talking on a computer like little TV screen. You're like, no, come on.
Like the
I never
Jetsons.
saw that on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jetsons came true. So right.
Yeah. Right on.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure and an honor, actually.
Yeah.
So Carl, thank you.
You bet. It's been this has been great. Thank you guys so much.
Fun. Okay. And hopefully something interesting and a couple laughs for whoever listens. So
yeah.
And hey, we don't have to have Carl's show to do this. You guys know.
No, and in fact, I have a Zoom, I have an ongoing Zoom subscription, and we can, I can set this up and have it for, just put out a Facebook for, hey, Wenatchee peeps, let's get together for, class of 86 or class of 85, and get everybody.
And we did that a few times, right?
Yeah,
we did that a few times.
Fun.
It was pretty
fun.
Put
a link on my YouTube page, maybe.
Yeah. It was good catching up with Sharna last time.
Right.
Cool. Yeah.
I know there was one call, and there was one girl, and it was Renee Pollock.
Oh, yeah.
Renee Pollock, yeah. Yeah. And she's doing great. Everybody's everybody, it's good to see everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
All right.
Gentlemen, that was fun.
All right. Thanks guys. Appreciate it.